Every single year, I predict who will win the NBA awards of the upcoming season, and every single year I'm mostly wrong. That's why I like to say that predictions are meaningless, but it's the off-season, baby, which means that meaningless content is at an absolute premium right now. So, without further ado, here are my way too early 2026 NBA award predictions. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel and drop a like on this video. Trying to hit 150k subscribers over here, so it would be much appreciated. Also, speaking of subscriber goals, Little Rusty Buckets, my third channel, I'm trying to get 50k over there. So if you have not subscribed there already, I am posting 2 videos a day over there about random stuff in the NBA world. If you've ever had a topic where you were like, I wonder what he thinks of this, there's a decent chance I addressed it over there. But with that out of the way, enough shameless plugging, let's talk about real quick what my predictions were last year. Partially because it fluffs the video, if I'm being completely honest, but I did this with my bold predictions video, and I think it's fun to actually go back and reflect on what I did previously. Specifically, my preseason predictions, because I also do predictions at the end of the regular season, knowing the context that I do. I think I might still do this same thing when I get to that point with this next upcoming year. Yeah, enough yapping. Let's get into it. My MVP prediction was Luka Doncic, with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander being my pick to be the runner-up. I highlight that. I'm only going to highlight my runner-up picks if I was close, and in this case, SGA did actually win the award. I don't think it's too unfair of me to have made that prediction, given Luka just made the finals, and crazy I know, I didn't predict that they would trade him in the middle of the year to the fucking Lakers, so my bad not foreseeing that one. My DPOY prediction was Victor Wembanyama, as was literally everybody else's. If I remember correctly, the odds for him were just out of this world, like by far and away the heavy favorite, and he was going to win it before he ended up having his blood clot issue. So yeah, Victor Wembanyama was my pick. Then it ended up actually being Evan Mobley. I didn't actually give a distinct runner-up, but I did mention Evan Mobley as one of the guys I was watching out for. Rookie of the year, I predicted Zach Edey, and didn't know much about the draft class. And once again, I'll say it when I get to the Rookie of the Year guest this year, I really don't have much knowledge about draft prospects, even after the Summer League. So I picked Zach Edey. It was actually Stephon Castle. I did not know much about Castle at the time of making that video. What are you gonna do? The most improved player prediction I had was Jalen Williams. I actually think he was still a candidate in some capacity, but it actually went to Dyson Daniels. J-Dub, though, I did feel good about just because he averaged 19 points. I predicted he'd get up to like 23, 24, and in conjunction with OKC being so much better, he would win it as a result of that. OKC was better. He did put up numbers. I think he got up to 23, 24, exactly like I mentioned, but not quite enough to actually win it. Dyson Daniels, incredible season on the defensive end of the floor, and also bumped his statistics significantly because of the extra opportunity. For Sixth Man of the Year, I predicted it to be Malik Monk when it was in fact Peyton Pritchard. Not much to talk about there. So now we get to our new predictions, who I think will win the major NBA awards of the 2025-2026 NBA season. First of all, let's start with Sixth Man of the Year. Well, I did not write down my pick for Sixth Man of the Year. I filled out everything else. I filled out every other award, but Sixth Man prediction I forgot to fill in. So let me just do that real quick. What the fuck? Okay. So as of right now, just looking at what the odds are, Peyton Pritchard is slotted to repeat. DeAndre Hunter is the runner-up with the Cavaliers, but I don't know. My gut's kind of leaning TJ McConnell. I could also see it, weirdly enough, going to VJ Edgecombe of the Philadelphia 76ers, because I imagine he will not start over Maxey or McCain, and especially if they do end up bringing Grimes back. Karis LeVert on the Pistons is also a good answer. So I think I'm going to say Karis LeVert, TJ McConnell, and Ty Jerome are my picks. But I think I'll go Karis LeVert out of that group. Karis has always been built to win a Sixth Man of the Year award. He's always had the exact perfect style of game to put up the numbers on decent enough efficiency on a high volume. But I don't know. Sixth man is a very difficult one to predict. Last year, I just went with literally the odds-on favorite, who was Malik Monk. This time around, I think my main pick is going to be Karis LeVert, because on the Detroit Pistons, he's the only other guy. Jaden Ivey could potentially take up this mantle and make his role reduced, but like, there's really no one else besides for Cade who I trust to be a high-volume ball handler, playmaker, shot creator off of the dribble more than Karis LeVert, and again, possibly Ivey. And I think he's going to have a lot of opportunity. He'll probably play starters minutes. So I'm going to go with Karis LeVert of the Detroit Pistons. And if I had to pick a runner-up, I think I'm going to go with Ty Jerome of the Memphis Grizzlies. He was the runner-up this previous year. So I still love Ty Jerome. So maybe there's some bias in that. Everything else I wrote down, I just didn't fill in the sixth man of the year spot for some reason. So apologies for picking that one on the fly. Everything else was pre-selected. And with that out of the way, we're going to move on to most improved player, where my choice is Amen Thompson and my backup choice is Andrew Nembhard. And for Amen, his numbers are good, but I think he could get near-ish that 20 points per game range in this upcoming year. I honestly think that with Kevin Durant there is less necessity for Fred VanVleet to be the point guard all the time. And I think if you want to really maximize your size, Amen Thompson at the point guard position for large stretches could be a real thing for the Houston Rockets. Like if you want to go Amen, Dorian Finney-Smith, Kevin Durant, Şengün, and then a center, whether it be Steven Adams or Clint Capella, that's a really big lineup. I also think it works damn near perfectly. And like, it wasn't really as possible to do given the limitations Amen has as a shot creator, especially by contrast to the likes of Jalen Green and Fred VanVleet. But because you have more shot creation in Kevin Durant, you can afford to let that area of the game slip a little bit more. And Amen, while he's not a jump shooter, not a pull-up jump shooter, not a shooter really in any capacity other than he has a little bit of a floater game that's pretty decent, I can't say I think it'll be a significant limiting factor in the context of this roster. I think the context of this roster will allow him to elevate his numbers and his impact, and that's a good way to win most improved player, on top of the fact that most improved player often goes to dudes who are on pretty good teams. I think the Houston Rockets will be one of the best teams in the NBA next year. So my backup pick being Andrew Nembhard, that was less about team record and more about the increased opportunity. While I do think Amen will get more opportunity in Houston, I think a larger leap in opportunity will exist for Andrew Nembhard, just that I think the Pacers will be significantly worse and they'll be a okay borderline like 7th, 6th seed in the East. Maybe they avoid the play-in, but probably in that territory. Not to say the Pacers will be terrible, but they're just not going to be as great. Andrew Nembhard is going to take on a lot more ball handling and shot creation responsibility, because with Halliburton gone and with Miles Turner gone, Andrew Nembhard is going to, there's a huge vacancy in terms of shots. So I like Nembhard basically as much as I love Amen for the pick here, but I am leading with Amen just because I think the Rockets will be better. But if you told me Andrew Nembhard next year averaged like 18 points and 8 assists, would not shock me at all. I've always felt like he was capable of doing a little bit more, and now he's in the context to get thrown right into doing a little bit more. For my DPOY prediction, unfortunately, I have to make the same basic ass prediction that I made last time, which was Victor Wembanyama. Obviously, this could be derailed if he ends up dealing with blood clots or any other kind of injury again, but he was the odds-on favorite going into the year by a fucking landslide, and that's for very good reason, and I'm willing to bet you he's the same odds-on favorite by a landslide this year. And that's why I feel confident making the prediction. He wasn't going to win it in his rookie year. He was going to win it in his sophomore year, and then he got hurt, so I just think it's all but guaranteed that Victor will get it. On top of the fact that there is also this degree of like making up for it that factors in. Like DPOY should have gone to Victor last year, so we're going to be extra sure. Not that they'd really need the extra like narrative bend to help him win it, but the fact that he has that on his side, on top of the fact that he also is just going to put up unbelievable stock numbers, I think that will do it. The one thing that you could probably knock against him for his DPOY case in the previous year was that the Spurs were not a particularly high-ranked defense, but that was actually more just an illustration of how bad the defense was outside of him. And like, they would just completely tank all the good stuff that he did whenever he was on the floor. But when Victor was on the floor, the Spurs were statistically like a top 3 defense in the league. I think they might have even literally had the best defensive rating possible, basically, when Victor was on the floor. I also think an extra year of Castle's development, he's going to be a dog on that end. I think some of the guys they just drafted, not the first guy, Dylan Harper, but the other guy whose name escapes me, he's a defensive guy as well. I think the Spurs should in general be a better defensive team, and they should also be just better as well. And winning more games also helps you win DPOY. Winning more games pretty much helps you win every single award, but it varies how much it matters. Typically speaking, DPOY is an award that historically goes to one of the higher seeds in their given conference. It's almost always a top 3 to 4, at worst 5 seed in the conference, and I think the Spurs have a good chance of being in that territory. Now, my backup pick is Chet Holmgren, although my backup pick is kind of tied with him and Evan Mobley. Like, Chet is at the disadvantage of the fact that he is on a roster that is so overwhelmingly stacked with defensive talent. Yes, he's the best defender on that team, but also there's still an all-time great defense even when he's not there. So that kind of works against his favor. Maybe my backup pick is actually Evan Mobley, now that I'm thinking about it, because I just think that Mobley will not have that discount going against him in the same way that it will Chet. So actually, yeah, I changed my mind. My backup is Evan Mobley. All right, so I don't know if y'all at the mic caught that, but Rudy brought his take in the background saying that Toumani Camara would be a good candidate if the Blazers end up being good. Can't disagree with that. Definitely up there. And then Dyson Daniels, given that he didn't win it this previous year, especially if the Atlanta Hawks end up taking a big leap in the standings, also a worthy mention. I'm never going to pick a guard to win that award, though. So Victor Wembanyama is my main pick, and Evan Mobley is my backup. But Camara is an interesting pick. Camara is someone to watch out for sure. For Rookie of the Year, I am going to go with Cooper Flagg. Again, boo, basic bitch answer, but a pretty easy one to make for good reason. And my backup is going to be Ace Bailey. First, let's talk about my actual winner. Cooper Flagg, while he's probably not going to get nearly the prevalence of shots available to him that he would have on other NBA teams, his all-around impact, specifically on the defensive end of the floor, is going to be significant. I'm quite confident in that. And, after Anthony Davis, with Kyrie Irving out for a majority of the year, there's not some clear-cut guy who should be getting more shots than Cooper. So second option on your team as a rookie is still pretty good. So I have the confidence that Cooper Flagg, I just think he's the best player in the draft. Shocking, the number 1 pick being the best player. But I think he has a floor that is good. Now, the Rookie of the Year award is typically about counting stats a lot. But if the Mavericks end up being a pretty decent team and he ends up putting up really good stats and having this crazy floor of impact to his game, I think he runs away with it. However, the Mavericks might not be that good, and he will not get as much opportunity as I think Ace Bailey will. Because when you actually look at the players who the Utah Jazz traded this offseason, they have freed up a lot of shots. Colin Sexton and John Collins were up there in terms of shot attempts on this team. In fact, let me just look it up just to get the specifics for you. Field goal attempts per game. Colin Sexton was number 2 with 13.8. They also got rid of Jordan Clarkson, who took 13.3, and John Collins, who took 13.3. So there is currently 39 shot vacancy on the Utah Jazz, and they just drafted a guy who's a professional scorer. So I imagine Ace Bailey will basically be leading this team in field goal attempts. And what I saw from him in the summer league, he looks like he can be a remarkable play finisher. And while I'm not necessarily the biggest Isaiah Collier or Keontae George fan, they are pretty good playmakers, and I think they'll do a good enough job of feeding them the ball. Also, while the personnel has held it back from actually being particularly impactful, I do think Will Hardy is a good and interesting offensive coach. So if the right plays are drawn up, I think Ace Bailey can be a 20 point per game scorer, and Cooper Flagg probably would be more like 16 to 18. Like if Ace could actually get into the like 23, 25 range, that's when it starts to get interesting and we start to really analyze what the Rookie of the Year award even is. Because if it ends up being this like super impactful guy on the more winning team, but his numbers aren't as crazy, specifically points per game isn't as crazy, versus this guy on a team that should be completely dog shit, but he puts up really good scoring numbers, does not have that floor impact, does not really do much on the other end of the floor. But hey, I think that will be interesting. And I think I'd be shocked if it wasn't one of those two. And that's not to disregard other rookies from this class. I just think Cooper Flagg is Cooper Flagg, and Ace Bailey is in as good of an opportunity to get up as much shots as he wants as possible. And I think part of the reason he didn't want to go to Utah was he wouldn't be able to get those shots. But then, of course, they've let everybody else go. Again, basically 40 field goal attempts worth of players. He should have plenty of opportunity. And then finally, we get to the MVP award. Again, last year, I picked Luka Doncic with SGA as the runner-up. I technically went 0 for 5 on these. So I really am hoping this is the one that I get, because I think I'm right this time, but God knows I've thought I was right before. My MVP prediction for this year is Giannis Antetokounmpo. I am not thrilled that he is on the Milwaukee Bucks, personally. I don't like when superstars waste their time on teams that just are not going to be able to win a championship, and I am pretty confident the Bucks cannot win a championship unless Miles Turner just ends up breaking out as like a 25 point per game guy, but I'm pretty in doubt of that. He's got a decent roster around him. Like, the thing that I've been saying about the Bucks is they're a team made up of like 7th and 8th men, like AJ Green, Gary Trent Jr., Bobby Portis, Kyle Kuzma at this stage in his career. Like, there's just a bunch of guys on this team that are solid to pretty good NBA players, but like none of them are exceptional. And that's a problem. That's definitely a problem. But for the MVP race, not really a problem. And the thing is, when Giannis won it in 2019 and 2020, he had a very strong case for, essentially, it was a carry job. His team, pretty good. There's some good stuff there, but mostly a bad team. Mostly a bad roster. This was in the Eric Bledsoe era. Also, for whatever reason, Chris Middleton kind of had some playoff droppage at that stage in his career. It worked its way back around for them to eventually win a championship. The Bucks were first and foremost a team that had a superstar who just made them really, 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 really fucking good, and then just a couple of pretty solid pieces around that. And that's cool. That's great. It was impactful, but we're talking about a carry job type of case. Like, I'm not acting like it's strictly that's why he won these awards, but it really, really helped his case. And we've obviously seen that since then, his more talented rosters have held him back, because it's not as though he has not put up numbers comparable to that of his MVP season. In fact, he's probably put up better numbers. I would argue that Giannis's previous season is the best season of his entire career in terms of his individual capability. I think Giannis was at his absolute peak last year, because not only did he do the same old Giannis shit that he's always capable of, but his mid-range jumper was very, very, very real, very impactful, and added a whole new facet to his game. Unfortunately, got injured for the playoffs before he could really show what it looked like on that stage. I think what will happen this year is the Bucks will be a 50-win team and one of the top seeds in the Eastern Conference, thanks to Giannis Antetokounmpo putting up bonkers numbers and putting on a crazy carry job. And it's not as though he hasn't always had more responsibility offensively than in an ideal setting. Even when he won the championship, that was the case. You know, you still had Damian Lillard, so you could be like, he's not really carrying, he's got Damian Lillard. And before that, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, it's not really carrying, he's got a really great backcourt. At this point, if Miles Turner is your best teammate, and then next up it's like, okay, Gary Trent, AJ Green, between Bobby Portis, Kyle Kuzma, who's the third best player on this team. We're talking about a carry job here, not to mention he's being coached by fucking Doc Rivers. So yeah, Giannis, I feel better about him in my MVP prediction now than I think I have in quite a while. I can't think of the last time I was this confident in an MVP prediction. If I have to choose a backup, I will go with the same guy I picked last year in Luka Doncic. My argument for last year was that coming off of the finals appearance, his momentum would be as good as it ever was. Well, I think being traded to the Los Angeles Lakers, being at the forefront of the conversations of the NBA by default because of that, and then also him just putting up a revenge tour season, I think the narrative will be on his side, the media bias will be on his side, the just simply being at the forefront of the conversation thing will be on his side, and then I think his numbers will be bonkers. The last pillar there for him to actually win it would be for the Lakers to be at least a top 5, top 3 seed in the Western Conference. That's where I'm skeptical because the West somehow, some way keeps getting better. Rockets got better, Nuggets got better, Spurs got better. OKC didn't do much, but I think they'll get better just from internal improvement. So yeah, I think I feel confident in Giannis, but Luka does have the Lakers factor. But yes, so just to run through these real quick, my MVP prediction is Giannis, Rookie of the Year, Cooper Flag, DPOY, Victor Wembanyama, Most Improved Player, Amen Thompson, and Sixth Man of the Year. Who the fuck did I pick again? Karis LeVert. Sixth Man of the Year, Karis LeVert. Yeah, that is it. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.